Welcome everyone to the Medical Center Library Research Workshop Series, Romancing the Research, Gray Literature and Preprints. So today I'm going to talk to you all about gray literature and preprints, what they are, what are some best practices to using them, and then we're going to kind of go through some resources together. My name is Cayla Robinson. I'm one of the librarians here, and it is really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming today. Okay. So first things first, we're going to get to know the preprints and gray literature. We're going to learn how to commit to preprints and gray literature, and then we're going to do some speed dating with some resources. So to begin, we have to get to know preprints and gray lit. Specifically, preprints are usually an early form of a manuscript that has not undergone peer review. So that is the crucial piece here. Preprints are not peer reviewed. You cannot submit an article once it is published because therefore it is peer reviewed and is not a preprint of said published article, which means that preprints, when they are registered or uploaded, do not sometimes have final analyses and usually do not have peer reviewed edits. Some of the time they are screened to make sure there's nothing egregious, but that does not mean that they are reviewed. Gray literature is a little bit different. It's works that are not traditionally published. So preprints are technically a form of gray literature. Preprints are early manuscripts. Gray literature can simply be anything that is not traditionally published or peer reviewed. So there are a few types of gray lit that we're going to talk about today, but just know that you can find it anywhere. You can find it in scholarly databases. You can find it in repositories. You can find it in government websites and business/organization websites. So gray literature can be truly any kind of research design as well as preprints. So some types of gray literature are clinical trial registries. So these are preliminary registrations of clinical trials. They may be trials that are actively recruiting participants, trials that have been terminated, or trials that have been completed. So there may or may not be some final data there. Dissertations and theses are also considered to be gray literature as they are not traditionally published. These are, of course, research created by students earning master's, doctoral, advanced degrees. Dissertations and theses usually fulfill a graduation requirement and are reviewed by committees before submission. Government reports are materials like white papers, epidemiological reports, government surveys and data that are generated by the government or a professional organization. You can also have reports from businesses and NGOs and things like that. And then finally, this is definitely not an encompassing list of types of gray literature. These are just the ones we're going to cover today. But data sets are also considered gray literature if they are submitted outside of that published manuscript. So it's data that is created by individuals. Data sets usually are raw data in its rawest form. So a data set by itself is gray literature. And once again, later we are going to go through some of those resources, but first we need to know when to commit to using and or registering our research as a preprint or as gray lit. You typically will know if the thing that you are designing is gray literature. You know that it can't be traditionally published. However, preprints are a little bit different, and we're going to talk about that now. So when do you consider, actually, let me move this, see if that works. When to consider preprints. Preprints promote open science and data sharing. So people have, at the National Institute of Health, do encourage researchers, especially researchers working on grant-funded research, to register their article as a preprint. So once again, a preprint is simply just an early version of a manuscript. It can be any type of methodology, any kind of study design, unless it's gray lit, of course. But these things do not necessarily reflect whether you can make something a preprint or not. So some use cases for publication, when to consider registering your preprint in a repository. So if you want preliminary feedback on your article, if you want the results to be public faster and you want it to be more visible. So once again, there's really no downside to registering a article as a preprint. It is simply your choice. It promotes open science. It is good for, the research ecosystem. However, that is your choice. And sometimes even a grant funding organization's choice, they will not let you register your research as a preprint. So just something to keep in mind. When to use preprints in research. So if you are kind of dreaming up a new research idea or you're working in a field that is maybe a little bit more niche, looking at preprints is always a good idea if you want that preliminary data. This also helps you to know what is being done and who is working on it and where. There is never a bad idea to look at preprints before you start writing or doing a new research project. You can also use preprints as preliminary data in emergency situations. I think there is a caveat here that once again, these data are not final and they have not been peer reviewed. However, in some situations, as a clinician or someone who is working within healthcare, you can make that decision in an emergency situation. And then finally, you can actually use preprints in systematic reviews. I would not consider that as, the traditional searching aspect, but you can use it as gray literature. So it's kind of confusing, so bear with me. Let us move on. Wonderful. So when to consider gray literature. As I said, gray literature is anything that is not traditionally published, meaning that preprints are technically gray literature. Preprints, once again, are any preliminary manuscript. So gray literature is many different types of materials. We've already talked about 4. Gray literature is incredibly important when you are working on an evidence synthesis project. A systematic review, a scoping review, an integrative review. All of these review types need gray literature to support their findings and to help reduce publication bias. That is not the only use of gray literature. Of course, you can use data sets that have been freely registered anywhere to conduct secondary analyses, of course, but gray literature is very crucial for evidence synthesis. So once again, you can use gray literature for evidence synthesis. You can also use it to scope out up and coming research. So conference proceedings, conference presentation abstracts, those are also considered gray literature, and they can kind of help you see what's coming out in the research. As well as dissertations and theses. Dissertations and theses are wonderful to use. They are not peer-reviewed, but that does not mean that they're not highly resourced, highly researched, and highly niche topics. And then finally, like I said, it helps mitigate publication bias by not having traditionally published research. As you all may know, it is hard to get research that proves a null or proves a negative published. People like punchy research. So this helps eliminate publication bias by kind of gathering those null or maybe negative result publications. Oh, okay, my keypad is not working. Love that. So that is the gist of what preprints and gray literature are. And now I'm going to show you all some resources. We're going to kind of, as I say, speed date preprint resources. If you have any questions, please go ahead and throw them in the chat. We are going to do preprint resources, and we're going to do gray lit resources, and then I'm going to do kind of a live demonstration of how you can find some of these using the resources that I'm going to show you. So once again, preprint resources, there are quite a few archives here. I have only put the health sciences ones. So bioRxiv and medRxiv are both owned and operated by Cold Spring Harbor Labs. bioRxiv used to index medical literature, but since the opening of medRxiv, they have kind of transitioned all of those preprints over. So bioRxiv is a preprint repository that focuses on biological research, including but not limited to bioinformatics, neuroscience, and even science communication. medRxiv is health sciences research, and that focuses on clinical trials and other medical subspecialties. So once again, these are repositories. The links will be in the chat. However, I would like to note that in quite a few of the scholarly databases, Web of Science being one of them listed here, and PubMed being the other, they do now index these preprints because they pull articles from bioRxiv, medRxiv, and then some of the other ones. Web of Science has what we call a preprint citation index. An index is simply just a collection of articles or preprints. This allows you to search bioRxiv, medRxiv. I've never been able to say this one, aRxiv, I think, and chemRxiv. So aRxiv is like physical sciences, physics, chemistry, and then chemRxiv is also chemistry, as well as preprint.org. So this is a paywalled database. The first two are free, open access. You will be able to access the exact same articles that are in bioRxiv and medRxiv in Web of Science. Web of Science just allows you to search more of them at once, which is why it's paywalled. And then the last resource I'm going to show you all today is OSF preprints. So this is Open Science Framework preprints. It contains lesser known or lesser utilized preprint repositories, some international preprints as well. So this is once again really important for kind of getting that Western bias out of your research. So this contains preprint servers such as Sport Archive, Africa Archive, and others. So quickly, I'm just going to kind of breeze through these slides here because I just want to show you what they look like and a little bit about the search feature. So bioRxiv and medRxiv essentially look the same. You can type a search in and kind of send it through their database, or you can search by subject areas if you're not looking for anything specific. Once again, there are the topics here like paleontology, if you're interested in, I think that's bones. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I am not a clinician. Biophysics, cancer biology. But then to note, I'm unsure if you're going to be able to see this, but on some of the topics here, there is an asterisk, like epidemiology and clinical trials. Those denote topics that have been moved to medRxiv. Once again, there looks almost the exact same. It is managed by Cold Spring Harbor, the BMJ, and Yale. So lots of good stuff going on at the medRxiv. They also like to leave you a note that it's preliminary work. It's not peer-reviewed, should not be relied on to guide clinical practice or health-related behavior, and should also not be reported in news media. So they're just leaving us a little note here. It also talks about the COVID-19 preprints that came out a few years ago. Once again, the topics you can search are below here. There are things like anesthesia, pathology, pharmacology, basically anything you can dream of in the medical field, it will be here. But you can also search in the search bar. This is the Web of Science preprint citation index. It is incredibly important to note that Web of Science will automatically search the Web of Science core collection. So I have an arrow pointed here that is telling you to search in the preprint citation index. Once again, I will kind of walk you through this live to show you how I get here, but you will not pull you will not pull a lot of preprints, or you will pull things that are also published work if you search in the core collection. So if you only want to look at preprints, you need to search in the preprint citation index. Web of Science is fairly straightforward to search. This topic search will search title, abstract, and keywords, but there's also an advanced search as well, which we have other videos for that you can watch if you're interested. And then finally, OSF preprints. Like I said before, OSF stands for Open Science Framework. OSF is kind of a scientific repository of information. You can register protocols for systematic reviews. You can register data sets in here, but they do have their own preprint server. So you can search or even submit your own preprint here, and it will provide you with a DOI. Now, that is preprints. If you have any questions, please let me know. But we're going to move on to speed dating our gray literature resources. Okay, so we have 4 more. And some of them we'll talk about, but some of them might be a little meh. So that is kind of the thing about gray literature, is that it is not even usually an early version of a manuscript. A lot of the times gray literature is not even screened, so you really do have to be careful with it, but it is incredibly important to utilize and know about. So the first one is the Web of Science DNT, which stands for Dissertations and Theses Index. Once again, this is going to index only dissertations and thesis. It is a paid resource, and it is the only one listed here that is paid. So you access it through the University of Kentucky. Next, we have clinicaltrials.gov. So this is operated by the National Library of Medicine. Same thing, where it is going to provide you with trial registries of recruiting active participants, terminated or completed. Mednar is the one that I have just recently discovered, so I haven't been able to play with it for a while, but it is not super intuitive, and you will see why in the screenshots. However, it does allow you to search across like government, professional organization websites for like info pages, and I'll show you all that in a second. It is a great way to collate that information. I wouldn't say it looks the best, but it's useful. And then finally, we have data.gov, which is owned and operated by the U.S. General Services Administration. The goal of this is to provide access to freely available data sets for you to analyze. I'm going to go through all of these. So once again, I did not include an arrow here, but it is the same thing with the preprint citation index and Web of Science. If you want to search dissertations and theses citations, you have to search in this index. You will not typically get dissertations and theses if you search the core collection. This is clinicaltrials.gov. You kind of input here almost in a Pico format the condition you're looking for. There are other filters, other terms. You can even look at population data, I believe. So this is not just in the US either. Most of these things that I'm showing you today aren't specifically US based. So that is just something to consider. Next, we have data.gov. Data.gov is a massive, massive undertaking. There's seems to be now over 300,000 data sets. So they provide you with that raw data that you are then able to cite and analyze in your own secondary analyses. And then finally, I saved Mednar for last because this is what it looks like. Once again, I looked into it. I'm not sure who owns this, but the point of this isn't that it is giving you data. The point is that it's linking you to external sites that you can then kind of appraise yourself. So it links to the CDC, it links to the WHO, all of those websites that you can appraise yourself. This is not giving you data that you can just take at face value. Okay, let's do a live demo now. So that was our quick little get to know you date with gray literature and preprints. I'm going to first show you the Web of Science, and then if there is a database or something you want to look at or me to show you in the chat, you can just write that out, but I will show Web of Science, one preprint resource, and one gray literature resource if there's no specific questions. To get to Web of Science, you're not going to be able to just Google this like you are everything else. You do have to start at the Medical Center Library homepage. So we're going to go here. You can just Google KYMCL, Medical Center Library, and then scroll down. So this is going to be under Health Sciences Databases. You actually can kind of go into one of these databases by disciplines, but it's easier just to click on the Web of Science core collection because we can fix that. So we'll see if it's quick or not. I'm not on campus Wi-Fi, so it might not open very fast. Okay, wonderful. So once again, we are searching the Web of Science core collection. To change that to either the preprint resource or the dissertations and theses resource, you can scroll down and click on this. So the first one preprint citation index, it actually gives you a little bit of information here. It only indexes articles from 1991 to present. So that is something to consider. If you want something a little bit older, this may not be the best place. There's also preprints from around the world, it seems. So we have a lot of good data here. Let's just look at diabetes. So here is one, knowledge of diabetes among adults at high risk for type 2 diabetes in Kerala, India. Once again, this is not a US bait. Actually, it is, just kidding. It is a collaboration between Emory and a university in India. So once again, though, the data is not going to be solely focused on people in the US, which is really good to help with that publication bias. Okay, we have this, and now we can go back and we can change that to the dissertations and theses. So let's do again. There are 43,000 dissertations and theses in Web of Science that have the term diabetes somewhere. So this one is from UNC Greensboro. This one's from Seton Hall. You can organize it by publication year. So if you want to see dissertations or theses that have been published in the last 2 months, you can. However, it seems like all of these are going to be embargoed, which makes sense. There is absolutely nothing you can do to get these. Oh, well, maybe it's just this server doesn't want to work. Could be that. Yes, interesting. Very interesting. This, yep, might not work again at all. Okay. The thing about dissertations and theses is that they usually are embargoed for about a year, and there's simply nothing you can do. You can't interlibrary loan it. You can't purchase it. You just have to wait until that year is over, which gives the researcher and PhD, new PhD person, time to formally publish or write a book or something along those lines. This one's from 2004. Self-management in college students. Once again, you can use these. I will also note that dissertations are usually hundreds of pages long, so that's something to consider when wanting to look at and or use them for your research. Yes, this one's 146 pages. All right, let's hit some other ones. We have, well, I'll show you all PubMed really fast. So PubMed Central in particular is the service that indexes grant-funded articles. You can search PubMed Central on its own, or you can just search in PubMed. One of the things you can do is just search preprint. I actually forgot to leave the study design thing on here, so let's go look for that. We want publication type. It might have the dash there, it might not. Let's see. It did not. Interesting. Huh. Well, now I'm in the wrong place. What an interesting database. Okay. Well, we'll go back here. PubMed Central. All right, you know what? I am actually not sure where this is. If anyone has any idea, please let me know, because I am currently blanking. About PubMed. Let's find PubMed Central. Here we go. This. Let's do this. Collections. Author manuscripts. Here we go. Actually, this is peer-reviewed, accepted author manuscripts. Preprint pilot. There we are. It only took 5 full seconds to find it here. This gives you information about preprints. This allows you to kind of understand what the NIH is doing with this preprint pilot. It has been live for about 2 years now. I do believe they're doing some more phases with this. It even has like this lovely, lovely thing. Yes. Eligible preprint server. Does not seem to be as easy to find as I initially thought, which is honestly good. So the thing I wanted to show you specifically was that it does let you know that this is a preprint. So here is the example here. It tells you it's from bioRxiv. So now you know that if it says it's from bioRxiv, it is a preprint. And you can try to connect this to a published article, or you can just use this data. This article here is probably formally published now, but that does not mean that they remove the preprint. Okay. Let us go back here. Really does not want me to click on this. All right. Oh, I love this laptop. This is doing wonderful things for me. Okay. So we looked at bioRxiv, medRxiv. We looked at databases that search those. I'm going to show you all Open Science Framework. So you can just Google osf.io. You can also type in Open Science Framework, and it will all take you to the same place. You can log in using an ORCID ID, or you can simply just look for the information you want. So there's registries, meetings, institutions, and we want preprints. So you can search them right here, submit one if you'd like. However, there are specific subjects, so you can even do subject searching. Medicine and health sciences is probably going to be the big one here. It lets you know that it's a preprint, lets you know the date created, date modified. You can also kind of search here, so you can search for specific people. You can search for specific institutions. This is not, like I said, the most intuitive search functionality. However, this is a good place to check for them. Let's go back. It kind of booted me here. And then here are some of the preprint services that use the OSF servers to kind of manage their data. So we have paleoRxiv, Law Archive, French Archive, LIS Scholarship Archive. So my librarians in the room can search here. And it actually has its own little, this is not readable. Interesting. Interesting stuff. That was not readable at all. A choice of color, that's for sure. Okay, and then finally, I'm going to show you all one more gray literature database. Let's do data.gov. Okay. Oh, there are significantly less data sets than there were when I took that screenshot 2 days ago. So that's interesting. I wonder what happened to those. Okay, you can look them up by most viewed, recently added, organization, or even geospatial, which I've never clicked on. So we know what happens when I click on things I've never looked at before. US hourly precipitation data. So if you find some data you want to use, it is important to check who is providing the data. So this is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Department of Commerce. So here are the downloads, the data online data search, okay, data online map server, KMZ file. This looks like a PDF for data set documentation. Here's a sample of the CSV. Keywords, give you a lot of data here. Oh, wow. That is a lot of graphics data points. And then finally, if you scroll down, you can look at the metadata. So this was created in 2023, or actually, it was created in 28. I believe it was updated in 23. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. But all of the information that you could need, even a contact info, is here if you would like to use data for a secondary analysis. All right, I think you have seen enough from me. Here are the references. If you would like to look at where I found my information from, you can do that later. So, are there any questions? I will actually stop my share and show my face. Thank you. Yes, I'm glad you found it informative.